What's going on, folks? Jerem, Adrian here. Welcome back to the channel. Ascent Infinite Realm, the upcoming MMORPG by Bluehole, has launched its open beta test in Thailand a couple of days ago, and I've been playing it to get a feel for the gameplay and systems, since that doesn't require understanding of the language, so that's what this video is all about. And just so we're clear, because of the language barrier, I'm not diving into deeper systems or the game story until I can get my hands on an English localization patch. First of all, for those that haven't heard of Ascent Infinite Realm or AIR, let's get you caught up. Ascent Infinite Realm is a theme park MMORPG that takes place in a high fantasy steampunk world where machines and magic rule and everyone is dependent on flight to explore, travel, and conquer. In search of a new home, adventurers take to the skies using a wide selection of airships, vehicles, and flying mounts to traverse AIR's open, highly vertical world. Vehicles and mounts in AIR serve more than just the purpose of transportation, however, as they also provide adventurers with the ultimate battle experience, because AIR does have realm versus realm based on which faction you represent, and their PvP mode takes place, you guessed it, in the air with airship battles and on the ground with mechs. But all of that is for the late game, and one that will take me quite a while to get to, so let's talk about the early game experience. Before your adventure begins, you'll have to pick which faction you want to represent between the Vulpin and Ontari for narrative reasons and PvP. Character creation is up next, and players have 4 races as choices: standard humans, elves, orcs, and a rocket raccoon type race that are male only, which I'm happy to report is the only form of gender locking in game so far. For playable classes, there's 5 in total at the moment, which will be familiar to most MMO players, featuring the Warlord, Elementalist, Mystic, the Assassin, and Gunslinger. The character creation tool in itself is decent and lets you be as simple as you want or as detailed if you wish, and customization options are pretty good. Once in-game, you'll embark on a lengthy series of tutorials that just about covers the basic of AIR's MMO mechanics: movement, combat, and questing. As far as early impression goes, my first thought was, okay, this looks like a really weird child of BDO, Terra, and Bless. The game's got this light artistic fantasy style, an element that's common with Korean games especially, where terrain and textures and objects and surfaces just look light and hollow. But that's quickly erased knowing you've straight away got a flying mount and there's some freedom there. A few of the early quests are voiced, but that dies down really fast, to be replaced by button spamming to progress dialogue screens, which I'm happy to do since I don't understand anything. The combat system was a pleasant surprise though, it doesn't suck. AIR uses an action combat system. You have a reticle for aiming in the middle of the screen, basic class skills on your left and right mouse click buttons, and other class skills on your hotbar. Most of these skills have individual cooldowns, and certain class skills can set up combos, and to execute them, simply hit the skill that's being highlighted on the screen to either do more damage or bypass casting times, depending on your class of course. The more levels you gain, you also unlock tactics, which allows you to swap to a set of secondary class skills to be used in combat. For example, my Elementalist started off with frost skills, and later on I can switch to fire tactics, offering heavier hitting DPS skills with longer casting times to complement the faster and lighter skills found on my frost tactics. I do like this system, so that means even before level 10, you have plenty of skills in your locker to experiment with, which doesn't make the early combat repetitive and boring, and that's a plus. This also applies to aerial combat on your flying mount. Very early on, in fact, fighting in the air is part of the quest chains, and honestly, it's not quite what I expected, as you're doing the same class skills to flying enemies, and the only difference is you don't get to see the cool animations that you would if you were fighting on the ground. The dynamics are wonky, and you have to be in range and within the right altitude of a flying mob, so it does take some time and practice to get used to. More importantly for flying in aerial combat though, your mounts have stamina that depletes over time, so you can't be airborne forever and must be grounded in order to recover stamina. Similar to flying, your characters also get to glide, which is cool. Just hit the spacebar when you're jumping off high areas, and you get to sprint on the ground in addition to acquiring ground mounts as well. Now, combat animations on the ground I found to be really good, especially for my Elementalist class. It's the character models that I find personally to be a letdown. From their static standing poses to movement in general, the game could have done much better here. In the questing department, it's still early days and it's hard for me to progress faster since the Thai servers have a 2-hour login queue, which is insane, and at time of recording only playable between 4 PM to 12 AM, so I'll share some experiences so far from the early game. Questing here is primarily a quest hub crawl. And starting out, you'll be moving between the Inventor's Airship Dock, which is where you spawn into the surrounding floating islands, and there's some time travel too, I gather, that takes you back to certain events involving the main narrative. Getting around to your quest objectives requires no language mastery at all, since there's auto-pathing, which kind of helps in this case. And much of what you'll do when it comes to quest objectives is killing predominantly, but there are also snippets of cool content available, like bosses on the open world that requires other players to help you take down, and you'll even go up against them solo in the story mode, which uses a phasing system. Dungeons and solo dungeons are a thing, and I did do this introductory solo dungeon where I got a mini airship and was in control of the gun, and I hope to God this is not what the endgame airship battles are like, because the one that I did feels like the Tortolan world quest from World of Warcraft's Battle for Azeroth, and that's not a good thing. As far as early progression goes, there's nothing much players will have to worry about except updating their gear as they level and earning experience points to level up, which comes really fast from just following the main story quest chain. For later on, there will be a gear enhancing system, just like all the other Korean MMOs out there, where there's a chance to fail on higher enchants, and of course, the in-game cash shop sells items that prevents failing from happening. There's crafting too, in addition to an artifact system that I don't quite understand yet, but I've seen a collection system that's just odd. While out and about questing, you'll pick up items that you can donate to your collections found in its own dedicated UI panel, and once you have the right items done or amount donated, you can unlock some pretty decent character progression goodies like more combat stats for your class. So for example, mine would be intelligence, or you could get a passive increase to health and even new mounts and pets. Air does have a solid achievement system, I will say, and earning achievement points grants you more than just titles. You can get mats and other tangible goodies too. Anyway, that's just day one, and I'm hoping to see more of what Air has to offer moving forward. So to wrap up this video, here are some final thoughts about my early experiences so far. Ascent Infinite Realms' concept of a land and air-based MMORPG is an interesting one. In the early game, you don't actually get to see what was shown during all these cool trailers and previews featuring huge battles in the sky involving airships and mechs on the ground that looks really exciting. On the contrary, the early aerial battles that I did feel like mini-games at best, as you're using a starter mount mixed with class skills since you don't have your own airship or mech just yet. But that's where the potential lies, to wow players looking for a hybrid combat system, both on land and in the air, using more than just your class skills. And if they can nail that down, then great, it won't feel out of place, or it won't feel like a carbon copy of another game. Unfortunately, much else of what Ascent Infinite Realm offers is or does feel like a carbon copy of most other Korean games. Everything from the linear questing system with mundane objectives, the narrative delivery through NPC dialogue spam, the UI, the itemization and progression with all the enchanting and enhancing systems, and even the static set pieces in the game world and towns and other hubs, it does remind me a lot of Black Desert Online and Terra and Bless. That's not necessarily a bad thing if the game can mix it up enough to stand out, and Air scores some points by at least minimizing texture pop-ins a lot more than Black Desert Online does, and even the combat system feels good enough for me to say, yeah, that was fun, it's not jarring, and it works. Graphics aren't bad on the highest settings, but due to the Thai servers crapping out from heavy load at the moment, optimization suffers, but that's a temporary thing. What will make or break this game for me personally comes down to two things. Firstly, monetization. The Thai version's cash shop influence is pretty high at the moment, and that's to be expected for MMOs releasing in my part of the world. If the monetization doesn't change to suit a global audience that don't want a heavy-handed cash store, then it may go south for them. But that's not always the case, as Kakao Games have proved with Black Desert Online in the West. Secondly, and this one's more subjective, I hope the story will be engaging enough and is something worth investing in. All other Korean games having a bang average story shouldn't be an excuse to follow suit, but a challenge to overcome. So once I get this localized, I guess I can report back on that in the future. Bottom line, I've seen a few things in this game that's interesting enough for me that I want to continue playing it to get to those large airship battles, get a cool mech, and take part in some RVR and PvP. So I guess for me, I'm looking forward to the Western or global version. How hyped should you be for this? The answer is don't be. You'll only be setting yourself up for disappointment when hyping games up, especially for MMORPGs. if you do want to jump into the Thai open beta, which will run for a couple of months, you'll need a VPN to bypass the region block, and then you gotta deal with the ping, which does matter here. Therefore, is Ascent Infinite Realm worth the trouble right now? No. I'd recommend waiting for the Western or Global Beta, which by then may have gotten more improvements, better optimization, and hopefully a better cache store too. So that's it from me. If there's anyone in the Thai beta right now, feel free to share your experiences and your thoughts about the game in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy the content, and feel free to subscribe to the channel for more on MMOs and get notified on all my latest uploads. Once again, I'm Adrian, and I thank you for watching. Hey folks, thanks so much for watching that video. If you guys want to watch more, you can click the subscribe button at the bottom there or somewhere over here. And don't forget to hit that bell to get notified on all my latest videos. So I'll see you guys at the next vid. Take care.